Welcome to the Swoop, BG Falcon Media's live sports talk show. Bowling Green Athletics is in full swing right now with 9 programs underway this week. So there's no better time to talk sports. I'm your host, Chaz McNeil. I'm joined by 2 sports analysts from Falcon Media Sports Network, Holden Ruck, Caden Knapp. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Bowling Green football. Bowling Green football's offensive line has been a standout unit so far this season, but junior offensive tackle Tunde Fadukasi has put an entire new meaning to laying the boom.
I feel like drumming is just, everybody got their little escape, something that they go to, just to, like a hobby,
Tunde learned to play the drums for his local church at just 6 years old after years of watching people play every Sunday. While football is his main focus and his passion, he says there will always be time to unwind by picking up the sticks. Tunde transferred from Bowling Green in 2022 from Rutgers University and plans to join his brothers in the NFL who play for the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Rams. So let's get into this a little bit. This is a dude who is absolutely massive. He sits behind a drum set and just takes over.
And it's really impressive. You look at the precision and quickness that he's able to hit the drums with, even despite his size. Really pretty cool.
Well, with football, really any sport in general, you kind of need something to kind of calm you down and escape from that pressure on Saturdays or Sundays or whenever you're playing. So playing the drums is also, kind of his way of calming down, and it's just a good thing to do.
100% right. I got the opportunity to sit down and talk to Tunde a couple weeks ago, and he said it's almost 2 separate things. Playing the drums is just as big to him as playing football. Football, it's the work, it's the lock in. But after that, it's drum time. And it was so cool to just see him be able to just get in front of it and just take over. I think he played Poison by Biv DeVoe, I believe. And that was just really exciting, especially for Bowling Green in general, who their offensive line has been very good protecting Connor Bazelak, him stepping up. So it looks like Tunde might have to play some victory music for Bowling Green soccer as we transition into that, because Bowling Green soccer has been on an absolute tear. They took on Detroit Mercy on Tuesday at Cochran Stadium, and they pulled off a pretty big win. Bennett Painter scored his first hat trick, the first hat trick in 9 seasons for Bowling Green, his first of his career. Trace Terry didn't end up playing, but he's been very big for the Orange and Brown. And in general, Bowling Green soccer has been so good. I want to go back to Bennett Painter for a second, because Painter has 8 points so far this season. It's the highest by a BGSU player in more than a decade. That is so big for Bowling Green. We talked about how big football is. Soccer has been dominating as well. So let's talk about soccer for just a second, because, I'm not the biggest soccer guy. I'll admit that right now on air. I'm not the biggest soccer guy, but I know, Caden, you've looked into soccer a little bit. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go to the game on Tuesday, and it was a pretty cold day, but the Falcons started out hot. They scored 5 goals in the first half of play, and as you said, Painter was responsible for 3 of them directly. He had 2 assists on top of that. Detroit Mercy switched out their goalie at halftime. It was that bad, and it was just a great win for Bowling Green, and they came off with a devastating loss against UIC, so they really needed that pick-me-up, and the press conference really just showed that. And another thing to note is Aiden Patasek, their redshirt freshman, got his first collegiate goal that game.
Bennett Painter was so good against Detroit Mercy, but Trace Terry didn't even play, and he's still the best player on that squad. It's just insane how much depth this team really has, and the fact that they've still got a good chunk of games to play. I'm excited for a little bit of Falcon soccer.
A lot to look forward to.
Oh, 100%. So I think with that, we got to go from one program that's been on a hot streak to another. Bowling Green Volleyball has been on a heater. They have won 5 straight MAC games. They're 5-0. They had 2 reverse sweeps, and they're the best team in the conference currently. The Falcons' hot streak this past weekend is insane. They had 2 reverse sweeps, as I mentioned, one against Western Michigan and one against Toledo. The one against Toledo, that was really close. Western Michigan was a team that bounced them from the MAC tournament championship. That was really cool to see them break through it. And the fact that they had a bunch of players step up. Lauren Hovey, opposite, she's only a junior, and she broke the program record for career aces in the rally scoring era. That started in 2001. She passed Paige Penrod, and I got the opportunity to call that game. To be in the studio when that happened to be on the court, the way that people stood up and just started clapping, it was so cool.
Really an unreal moment.
100%. Mia Tyler, another player. They needed a secondary offensive weapon. That ended up getting going. Mia Tyler stepped up, 271 hitting percentage. She had a high of 312 on Saturday. That was one of the highest on the teams. Alexis Mattel ended up having the highest hitting percentage, but in general, she did really good. So now let's blend this over to Athlete of the Week because we're still going to talk some volleyball. Amanda Otten has been named the winner this week, and Otten absolutely showed out against Western Michigan. She played a big part in back-to-back reverse sweeps for the Orange and Brown. At just a sophomore, the setter has been arguably the best. She had the best game of her career on Saturday. She had 6 kills on 9 attempts with 31 kills and 5 blocks on the week. The native from Batavia, Illinois, was named the max setter of the week as well on Monday. She had 134 total kills throughout 3 games. And then on the season, Amanda has a team-leading 431 assists. That puts her 4th in the MAC in assists, and that is just so big for BG. They lost Jaden Walls this upcoming year, or I guess last year. She graduated. They bring in Amanda Otten, just so good filling in that hole. So since Otten is this week's winner, I got to toot my own horn. That means I correctly guessed Athlete of the Week this week. We've got a projection wall of fame, and now I'm going to be on there. So for any future Athlete of the Week projections, let me say it's been an honor to be the first, and we're going to have any future projections on there. Beautiful smiling photo of me, by the way. So Amanda Otten will take the court tonight and Friday at the Stroh Center at 6 p.m. both days. If you want to catch either game, you can either go in person or you can check out Falcon Radio. I'm going to be on there. Today I'll be joined by Artie Abrego, and on Friday I'll be joined by Andrew Smith. So that's going to be a fun time. So now it's time to look ahead to this week's Athlete of the Week, and there's a ton of good choices with how loaded the upcoming schedule is. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go C.J. Brown. C.J. Brown from Northern Illinois. He transferred to BG this past year. He's just a junior, but he's pretty old. He was the 2021 first-team All-MAC at NIU, and I think he's going to have a beat on his former team. So C.J. Brown, as I mentioned before, he was Defensive Player of the Game in 2021 at the MAC Championship. This guy knows ball. He's been there before, and I think the fact that NIU, he knows a lot of the players, that's going to be big in a matchup of a team that upset Notre Dame. We kind of forget about this, but that was one of the biggest upsets of the year. NIU went in and they upset Notre Dame. So BG's got their hands full. Now, how about you, Holden? What you got?
Well, I'm going to look ahead to the difficult volleyball schedule and give me Alexis Mattil, Chaz. She's leading the Falcons in blocks and hitting percentage so far on the season. Her .402 hitting percentage is 2nd in the MAC. And against Western Michigan last week's action, she led the team with a .45 hitting percentage. And she's also the MAC reigning Defensive Player of the Week. Look for her to have a big game against Central and Eastern, who are 2 of the better hitting teams, but worst against giving up blocks.
I like that a lot. What about you, Caden?
I'm going to go with Bennett Painter because, how could you not? He's had a fantastic season up until this point, and it was really highlighted this past week after the painful loss, as we mentioned earlier, to UIC. He led the team to victory against Detroit Mercy, scoring 3 goals. By the way, that was the first BG men's soccer hat trick in 9 years, and he also recorded 2 assists in the game.
Okay, so we've thrown out our projections. Let's defend them a little bit. So the reason I think C.J. Brown's got a shot is, as I mentioned before, he's got 31 total tackles this year. That's a good amount of tackles on top of the fact that he's been there before. Like, he knows his former team, and I got the opportunity to listen in on the press conference on Monday. He seemed a little hungry. He seemed like he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I like that. But I think Bennett Painter's going to win, I'm going to be honest, after we talked about it, but I also like Alexis Mattel.
Well, I will say, as far as C.J. Brown goes, Northern Illinois does like to ride the hot hand in the running game, and that necessarily maybe won't give the safety the most big play opportunities.
I agree with that. I think, I know a little bit more about volleyball than I do soccer, so you got to forgive me on that. But Mattil has been so good. She was 2nd in the MAC in hitting percentage last time I checked. That might have changed because games go on and they go so fast, but she is so good. As a middle blocker, she's just such a veteran presence, and I think that's sometimes forgotten for BG, their volleyball team. They're so good, but they're so young. This is such a young squad, and the fact that they've got people like Mattil that'll step up, I really like that pick. But yeah. Painter, I want to hear a little bit more about him.
He's been fantastic this year, as I just said. He has 9 total goals now, and like we said, he had 8 points against Detroit Mercy. He's up over 1,000 minutes at 1,017. We played 66 total minutes against Detroit Mercy, and as we said, that was a big blowout, so no surprise they kind of got pulled later. And he has 21 total points this season and 3 assists. I mean, and on top of that, he's just been a true leader. And in the press conference after the game, he really, instead of praising himself, he was like talking about the team and how big of a win it was. And that's what you want to see out of your leaders and captains on your teams. And he's just a sophomore, which is what's cool also about him.
That's the wild thing, is I think all of our picks are almost, they're so different in how they shape up. I went with a complete left field pick. C.J. Brown has not been the biggest player for Bowling Green. And then Alexis Matilla, that's the established veteran. And then you go Bennett Painter, the sophomore, who, I mean, it's just so, it's interesting. I'm rooting for all of us, but, you know, I want to go back to back. So with that, we're going to have Lathan Chapman coming up with your BG Sports updates. Updates this week only on the Swoop.
Reporting for the Swoop, I'm Lathan Chapman. Starting with football, the Falcons got back on track in Akron last weekend, taking down the Zips 27-20 in a thriller to start conference play at 1-0. Throughout the first half, points came in bunches, but the game would become a stalemate after halftime until the fourth quarter when the Falcons made a field goal to take a 10-point lead. The Zips would score 10 unanswered points, but then Harold Fannin Jr. would put the game out of reach with a 31-yard touchdown. Fannin would then get the honor to be called your Max Co-Offensive Player of the Week for the third time in his career. Fannin caught 9 passes for 135 yards and had 2 rushes for 37 yards and 1 crucial touchdown to put the game out of reach. Fannin extended his program record with his 4th straight 100-yard game. On top of that much-needed win, Bowling Green picked up their 300th MAC win ever. The Falcons are back in the Doit against the Northern Illinois Huskies this Saturday. The women's soccer team would pick up a nice win at home against the Northern Illinois Huskies 2-1. The game would stay scoreless until the 42nd minute when sophomore forward Emma Stransky got on the end of a cross by senior midfielder Jaden Frigerio, getting her 3rd goal of the year. Northern Illinois would respond quickly just 2 minutes later when sophomore forward Isabel Struble tying the game up with a set-piece play with just 9 seconds remaining in the first half. In the second 45, Bowling Green's Lexi Sermon would score the game-winning goal in the 49th minute. Sermon was assisted by freshman midfielder Lily Bay Bull. The Orange and Brown picked up a much-needed Mid-American Conference win. BG are now 3-1-1 and sit 4th place in the MAC. The Falcons will take a trip up to Kalamazoo to play Western Michigan Broncos today, the 10th. Skating into hockey now. The hockey team started off strong against Mercyhurst, winning back-to-back games in Pennsylvania. The Falcons showed off the best of 2 worlds between both games. The first matchup, Bowling Green played excellent defense, holding the Lakers to only a single goal, winning the game 2-1. The next day, the Falcons played excellent offense, scoring 5 goals, winning in a thriller. Coming back from a 4-1 deficit, the Falcons forced overtime by scoring 3 goals in overtime. Bowling Green would prevail and score the game's last goal, securing the win. Dennis Williams makes a statement in his first 2 games, coached for the Falcons, to improve to 2-0 on the year. The Falcons have a home opener in the Slater Ice Arena against Robert Morris later today. I'm Lathan Chapman reporting for the Swoop. Stick around for the wrap-up, where you'll find information on upcoming sports events.
Welcome back. It's wrap-up time, where we update you on sports happening in the next week. Here are our games we're excited to watch for this week. Tonight, hockey and volleyball are both playing at home. BG hockey is facing off against Robert Morris with puck drop at 7 p.m. Volleyball starts up at 6 against Eastern Michigan. Tomorrow, volleyball will be facing off against Central Michigan at the Stro at 6 p.m. Men's soccer and football are both kicking off on Saturday here in BG. Soccer is facing off against Drake at 7:30, and football is up against NIU, with the game starting at 3:30. Then, looking forward to Sunday, hockey will be here at the Slater up against Simon Fraser with puck drop at 5 p.m. So, we've got such a loaded slate, and I think we got to touch on a couple different things. So, I'm going to open this up to you guys. What is the number one thing that's got you most excited about Bowling Green sports right now?
Now, it feels like kind of the mainstream pick, but I've got to go with the Northern Illinois game. You look at the records of both teams going into it, the history of this rivalry in the MAC, which goes back far longer than any of us have even been here. It's just really the must-watch game in really all of Group of 5 football, I would say, this week.
I mean, if we're touching on that for a second, I think that's a really good point because, I mean, you've got Toledo and you got NIU. Those are the big giants of football here in the MAC. And they're in the same pod as Bowling Green. They are in the exact same group. We're going to play them every year. That's a squad that you don't want to face year in and year out. But you're going to have to. You're going to have to step up. I really like that pick. What about you, Caden?
I'm excited for the hockey game tonight and just like seeing the new Slater. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun and brand new hockey season, brand new coach, already 2-0. There's going to be a lot of excitement around this team, and I expect it to be pretty full tonight.
I agree with that, but I mean, I kind of want to take it back because there's another game going on, and I've already plugged myself on it, but we're also going to plug the fact that it's going to be a really good game. Eastern Michigan coming into town. Bowling Green is continuing this weird Michigan sweep that they had. They had Western their past 2 games, then they got Eastern, and then on Friday they have Central. So, you know what? I'm going to say, I don't even need my notes. I don't even need my notes for this. I can talk about Falcon volleyball all day. I'm going to say this. Bowling Green's volleyball squad is so well put together. You have Amanda Otten at setter. She's so good. Backup Anna Shitek is no slouch either. She's very solid. Mia Tyler is the secondary weapon behind Lauren Hovey, who is the engine for Bowling Green volleyball. She's MAC Player of the Year, in my opinion, if we're voting right now. She is so good. On top of that, Alexis Mattel, your Player of the Week, great as a middle blocker. I'm so excited. I can't contain it. I just can't. But there's a couple other sports that we've talked about. Let's go. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Because there is a lot.
Well, not in a different sport, but even just on what you were saying, I think it really emphasizes just how much everybody should be looking forward to this volleyball slate. When you look at Lauren Hovey, possibly the best player in the conference, one of the best players at her position all time in program history, and 3 of her teammates swept the weekly conference awards.
Yep. I mean,
that's absurd.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't happen.
I mean, 100%. You're right about that.
Yeah. And then outside of football on Saturday, there's a soccer or other football game, and that's going to be at Cochran Stadium. And the Falcons host Drake, and that's a big game because it's really going to see if the Falcons can follow up that big win against Detroit Mercy or if they kind of like go back to losing. But they've had a fantastic season. They're looking to get their 10th win, and it's just a big game.
With that, we're out of time. Have a phenomenal week. Don't forget to check out bgfalconmedia.com for more features, recaps, and more. Be sure to swoop in next time here on The Swoop.